All right, for this exercise, let's start a new image. The size of this image is going to be 1920 by 1080. Be sure you're working in pixels for your unit of measure, and we'll say create. Just like with all the others, make sure you can work in the animation setup. So if you go down to Window, Workspace, make sure Animation is selected so that we see all the different appropriate panels and dockers opened up. We want our frame rate to be about 12 frames per second. So let's go down to your timeline and open up the options. Set your frame rate to be 12 frames. And for now, we're going to keep the clip start at 0 and the ending to be 100 frames. So this will give us roughly 10 seconds to be able to work within. If yours is longer or shorter, we can always add on to it or take away later. Also for this one, let's go to our automatic keyframing and turn on auto blank frames to have that set up. Now whenever we create new frames, it'll automatically draw for us. The final thing we want to do to set up our animation is on this first paint layer 1, let's add our first blank keyframe by clicking here, and that'll give us a starting point. We can also turn on our onion skinning by clicking on the little light bulb so that we can see it. And you can see even over on my onion skins, I can see the previous 3 frames that we've worked through. Now with the paint layer 1 selected, the tool that I'm going to use is going to be my paintbrush tool. Make sure your color is set to whatever color you want, and by default I'm just going to keep mine black. And the paintbrush that I'm going to use is just the basic default first little brush that's here. So this is basic number 1. Later on you can experiment with some different ones of these, but we're going to keep this just nice and simple. Make sure you're working in normal mode, your opacity is at 100%, and keep the size relatively small. Later on we can change this up a bit. I'm going to keep it around 30 to 40 pixels in size. You can change this up if you want, but we just want to be able to see the dots that we're creating. Now we want to start on frame 0, and we're going to have a little dot just anywhere on the page, and I'm going to start it up here. Later on we can add more of these too here, but we're going to animate this dot randomly, just moving around on the page, going quick and fast, and just making some simple little arcing, flowing type movements, and then finally coming back to its original starting point. So with one single starting dot, let's go over to our next frame. So choose the next frame or click over to the next one, and we want to move it over just a bit. So we'll move it to the next part. Remember, because we have onion skinning turned on, we can see our previous drawing. Now remember, as you animate, the farther you move, the quicker it's moving. I'm going to the next frame each time, but we want to have these kind of get closer together in some frames. Whoops, let's get that one. And then farther apart. So as I draw these, notice that some of them are super duper close together. And they slow down. And then on a curve, and then maybe I want it to speed up. And so I'm having each one very quickly move around this way. Now, there's no set movement that it has to go. There's no set amount of time that this has to be either. What we're doing is simply making dots and seeing the rhythm and how they move on the screen. So you can see I put several of them moving closer together. Then I'll maybe have them start to move apart a little bit more. Let's see if I can get it to go back to its original starting point. Now I do have a little bit of a problem. I can't see where my original frame was, and I want it to go back to that original spot. If I choose that first frame, frame number 0, I can see that it's right here, and my dot is right here currently. So one thing I could do is I could make a copy of this frame. If you go down to your animation timeline, you can right click on that one and you can tell it to copy the keyframes. And since I have that one selected, that's where I'm at. Then I can go to the end of my frame, and it doesn't have to be the very last one. So I'm going to paste it like right here after a couple of them. Right click again and tell it to paste the keyframes. This gives me kind of a target to move towards. And so as I'm here, that's what it's going to be. So I need to move upwards towards this area. So back down to where I was at. And again, remember to keep moving towards it. And then once I see that I'm kind of close to it, then I can stop. That's getting pretty good right there. So maybe one more frame just as it hits right there, and then finally it'll stop to that point. Perfect. Let's test our animation by going back down here, hold down the Shift key and select all of your frames, and then when you press play, you can see how it's moving. So this is kind of a simple little animation that you can do to test out how things move. Notice that it's moving in an arc, it's curving around, it's going fast and it's going slow, but it does have a good little pace to it. If at any time you see something is off, we can always go back and redraw it. Now let's see if we can do another one and add a little bit more to it. Let's do this by going over to our Layers panel, and we want to make a new layer on top of Paint Layer 1. I'm going to lock down this one by clicking on the little lock icon. Go to the bottom of this Docker and click the little plus sign, and this will give us Paint Layer 2. Now with this second layer, let's go down to our timeline, and we need to make this an animation timeline. So let's click on and create our first keyframe inside of here, and then turn on our onion skinning. Now since we're going to be making another set of dots, we don't want to get confused with this other dot. I'm going to change the color of my dot to be something just a little bit different. So maybe for this one I'll make it kind of a pinkish red. And we'll say okay. If you want to get a little bit more creative with it, this is also a time you can choose a different brush. The other thing we want to do for this one is to change the size of our dot as we move along with it. So right now, the size of my brush is roughly about 40 pixels. I'm going to knock it down to be something about half or more of the size. Let's bring it down to, oh yeah, about 10 to 20 pixels. Looks good. So this time, as we start off, I'm going to have my original starting dot. Just click and add it right there. I know it's super tiny. We're going to have it be larger and smaller as it moves. So again, going down to my timeline, choose the next keyframe, and then move it over just a bit. And then choose your next keyframe and have it move more. But this time, now as it's moving, I'm going to bump up the size of it. I would suggest using the little arrows on the side, or you can use the open and close bracket keys on your keyboard. Both of those will also allow you to make it slightly smaller. And I'm going to make it just a tiny bit smaller as it gets bigger, or as it moves along. And then go to our next keyframe, and then make it a little bit bigger. And go to our next keyframe, and maybe this time we'll make it go much bigger. And so you don't have to do it a lot, but the more you do it, the faster the rate it'll get as well. What we want to simulate in doing this is that it's getting closer to you. And so as things get closer, they usually get bigger, or if they go farther away, they tend to recede. I'm going to make this one get much larger, much quicker. Again, next one, and then add on to it. I'm also paying attention that I'm moving in arcs, and that I'm slowing down on some of these and I'm speeding up on others, or I'm getting them closer or farther away. Maybe I'll let this be the largest that it gets. So there's that there. And so finally, oops, did that on the wrong keyframe. I'm simply going to click on it and drag it backwards. That's good. Now that it's in the right spot, we'll have it start to get a little bit smaller as it recedes away. So a little bit smaller, next keyframe. So the thing I'm thinking about is the spacing of it and the sizing of it as it moves around. So I'm going to get a little bit smaller quickly as it speeds up, and then get a little bit smaller. And have it speed up a little bit more. And then we'll have it go super small as it slows down here. let's have it continue around and go back to its original spot. So we'll go back this way, and maybe it's going to get super big as it gets closer. And of course I want it to end right about the same spot or the same size that that the original starting point was. So I'm going to have mine get, let's go even bigger for this one. That's looking good. My original keyframe started right here, so I want to copy that one. So copy the keyframe, and let's paste it right here at the end and see if we can get it to end at the same spot. Paste the frame. So that's what I'm moving towards. Here's another great tip to know. If you turn on onion skinning on this side, this will show you what it looks like moving forward a couple of frames. And so again, we can adjust the transparency of it, so we want it to be more transparent moving forward. But now as I select them, I can see where that forward onion skin is, and I can see how I want to be able to move towards it. So I'm going to start getting mine smaller, and getting closer and closer and closer, all the way down to what it originally was. And then finally, I can have it end at the same spot. And there it is there, and then finally it gets down to this one. Let's test our animation. Press play. So now you can see it's changing the size. And you can make this really dramatic. You can have it get much bigger and much smaller. It doesn't have to be that particular size, but again, it's a great way of practicing the movement of it and the placement of all your different keyframes. All right, let's do this one more time. Going back over to our layers panel, this time let's just turn off visibility for both of these layers. They're still there and everything's still set the same, but it's just not going to show it as it animates. We'll make a new layer on top of this. This will be our paint layer number 3. And again, if you want, you can lock down the other layers, but keep the one we're working on nice and locked. Again, on this new layer, let's set up our first frame to have a blank keyframe and turn on onion skinning. So as with the others, we want to start off with a dot, and just to make it simple to be able to see everything, again, I'm going to change the color of this dot. Let's make this one kind of a darkish green. That looks good. And the size of my brush can be a little bit larger so I can see it. So again, around 30 to 40 pixels. We want to start off with our dot on the first frame, then move to the next frame. This time, as it moves, if I move a larger distance, like if I wanted to move this distance, I don't just want to place a dot, I want to draw a line to that point. So it's moving all that entire distance. And then finally on my next keyframe, I'm going to move it a little bit more. Oh, excuse me. Do try to keep it straight or keep it in a curved fashion. Say I will move it this way. Go to the next keyframe, and it's going to move and connect with the previous lines that you had. So it's more than just a dot that we're drawing. It's going to be a set of lines. And just like with the others, we can have them closer together till it becomes just a dot in itself. But as it picks up speed, this time, we're going to draw off our frames. And again, if your frames are off, we can still move them over a little bit. So let's put this and test this out. I like that. Again, I'll need to go down to my onion skinning. I don't want to see the frames ahead, so I'm going to turn off visibility for those. I should have done that at the beginning. Now, let's continue drawing forward. I've got it. I'll have it pick up speed again. Whoops. Maybe start to curve a little bit more. These action lines, or these lines, are another great way of adding some movement to your design. And they don't have to be 100% perfect. You can see how mine are still off by a little bit, but it'll give you a good sense of what it looks like. as it's moving in the direction that it goes towards. Let's have it really pick up. Do a banking curve here. And I want mine to finish right where it started. So I'm going to go to our first keyframe. I'm going to copy it. So hold down your right click or control click on it, copy the keyframes. Go to our last keyframe and let's paste it. So I need to be moving forward to there. And this is where I can turn on my onion skinning moving forward on this side. So click on each of the numbers to show them. So now, as I continue animating, we'll get it to slowly go back into that position. And so now it's set to there. Let's test it out and see what it looks like. Press play. Pretty good. So adding lines to your movement, and it doesn't have to be every time, is another great way of adding an almost blur or a stretching effect that adds a little bit more pop to its creation. All right, once you're satisfied with the look and feel of this, and again, you can add more frames to it and have it move a lot more. Let's do it one last time. This last time, we're going to use our dot as a reference point, and then we're going to draw around that reference point to add on an almost blob-like figure moving with it. So let's set that up. Going back to our layers, we can turn off visibility and lock down our current layer. Let's make a new blank layer. So layer 4 is what we're working on. Again, go down to our timeline. With the first frame, frame 0 selected, we're going to establish our keyframe and turn on onion skinning. This time I won't forget. I'll go over to my onion skin and turn off visibility for forward. We just want to see the previous ones. Now this is going to start off exactly the same way as we did with the first one. We just want to have a moving dot that moves around our frames. So we'll start off with this one. The color won't really matter but I'll start it off here. We're going to use this as a reference point. So maybe for this one it'll start here and then we'll have it move quickly. So I'm going to add a little line to that one there. And have it maybe slowly bank into a turn for this. We'll make it an S curve. And once it picks up speed, can move quickly. This time it's going to go super fast. And then slow down just a bit. I want it to ease into that turn. And so I don't just want to have it all quickly do it. Maybe for this one it'll zoom off to here. Kind of reaching the bottom point, so let's move it back up. Now you can see this one's going to go a little bit longer than the other ones, and that's okay. Nothing says all of your dots have to be the exact same number of frames. I just did that as a way of keeping everything nice and consistent for time. Let's have it zoom off one more time to here. And then maybe zoom back to its original spot. So original spot was here. Let's copy the keyframe. So with it selected, copy. We'll put it just past the ending point here and paste the frames. So now I need to, in a couple of frames, have it zoom back over to this side. We'll turn on onion skinning moving forward so I can see where it's at. ease into those. That looks good. I do see where I've accidentally skipped over a keyframe. If that ever happens to you, don't freak out. That simply means it's being paused right there. If you need to take it out, you can right-click or control-click on it, and then you can tell it to remove the frame and to pull the other ones towards it. So now it fixed all of that and looks good. Let's select all of our keyframes and hit play to see what it looks like. Great. And you can see how adding the little lines really adds a nice motion blur to what we have. Now we're going to use this as a reference for a larger drawing that goes around it. So I'll hit stop. Let's go back to our original keyframe. One more time, go into our layers panel. Let's lock down this layer, and if we need to, you can drop the opacity of it just a little bit more so it doesn't get in the way. We just want to be able to lightly see what it looks like. Let's add a new layer on top. This new layer is going to be our, what I call the blob layer. And if it helps, you can double click and rename it blob. Inside the blob layer, let's go down to our timeline and let's establish this as a new animation timeline as we've done with the others. What we want to do is to draw a circle around this and have it stretch and squash as it's moving along with our timeline. So think about this. Again, I'm going to go up to my toolbox and I'm going to reset this back to be just a black in color. The size of it doesn't need to be as big as what we've been working on. So I'm going to set mine to be a little bit smaller. And I'm going to draw a circle, or think of it as a blobby bubble, something that's going to be squishy. So it's not going to necessarily be like a basketball. We want this to have some movement and some give to it. So starting off, we'll let the size of it be roughly about this big. Now you can see when I drew this, my lines are very, very squiggly. This is because it's picking up, I'm using my little drawing pad, picking up on every little movement that I have. If you want to have a nice, smooth, crisp line, let's do this. Go over to your tool panel and open up your tool options. In the tool options for the brush that we have selected, let's turn on smoothing. I like to use weighted smoothing. The more weight or distance that you give to it, the smoother your line is going to be. And so I'm going to set my distance to be around 200. So now when I go to draw my lines, you can see how it's a much smoother looking little bubble, and that looks really good. If yours is off by a little bit, that's okay. As a matter of fact, I'm going to zoom in and let's scooch over just a bit so I can see it and draw a little bit better. If you do want to clean this up at any time, you can choose the eraser tool, and the brush that you're working with will allow you to erase whatever you're working on. So you can go in and you can clean this up. For the sake of time, I'm not going to clean this up too much. Just make sure to turn off erasing once you're finished. So I've got it drawn here on the first frame. Let's go to the next frame. And so this is what the new one will be. I need to stretch out this bubble so that it fits inside of this area. Now bubbles can be stretched out this way, so maybe I'll have it go like that. And then once it reaches here, it's not going to turn back into a perfect circle again. It's going to kind of be somewhere in between this stretch state and a circular state. So maybe for this one, the one that I'm drawing on here, I want it to be somewhere in between that and this. One of the things that I'm looking for is I want it to be kind of a consistent size. So I don't want it to be getting bigger or smaller. I want it to kind of be the same. So let's do this same thing for each one. Try to draw off your bubble. It's moved over just a little bit and it's starting to slow back down into a bubble shape. And then all these are doing is just moving over slightly, and I'm trying to keep it nice and centered up inside of there. So notice that it's towards the center and it's starting to move. Since the movement is moving downward, that's how I want my bubble to start to move as well too. And so it's going to pick up some speed. It's moving around this way, so again, that's the center point. And then it's picking up a lot more speed now. I'm losing its shape as a bubble. So let's kind of reframe this and redraw it. If ever you need to undo something, always don't be afraid to use Command Z to undo and redo what you've got. It's moving down a bit more, so let's move it down here. And we can test out our animation. I think I drew that one a bit too big. So let's see if we can set it to be here. Again, I'm going to highlight it. Let's hit play. Great. You can see how it's really rocking along and looking nicely. If necessary, you can even turn off your guides. You can see what your bubble is going to look like. So one more time, let's turn back on our guides. It's stretching out, so the more it moves this direction, the more I want to stretch my bubble and have it fit inside of here. So it's almost like this is moving it nicely along. So going back to here, whoops, moved over my frames. Have it stretch out even more, but in the direction. So it's not in the center. And then we'll have this one kind of curve and stretch. Oops, let's see if I can do a better job on it. And it's going to become a bubble as it starts to slow down. All right, with this done, now you can get an idea of how everything should look. If necessary, you can zoom back out so you can see your entire design. There we go, for here. I'll straighten it up, and let's play it. Congratulations, so far, so good. Remember, you can always highlight the frames that you need, and if you need to, you can go back and adjust and tweak and modify anything that you want to make sure it looks and transitions really, really well. One last time to look at everything, we'll hit play. And you can turn on and off any of the paint layers just to see what they look like by themselves. Finally, if you want, let's turn on all of our layers and look at all of our dots just to see everything that we've done. By the way, if you get this little rendering error, this is a common thing. You can always hit cancel and it will force it to render what's already been done. You can see how this one went a little bit longer, but now we've got some lively little sprites that are moving around, and they're moving naturally, or at least it feels natural, because we've got them slowing down and speeding up, and they're following kind of a natural curve. Now this is a great first little step to making some animations, just getting an understanding of the spacing and the pacing of all of the different portions of the things that you're drawing. From here, we can add on other little elements. If you haven't done this already, let's go up to File and Save. And I've saved mine as just a basic critter file. The last thing I want to show you to do is how to render your movie. And I'll do that in a separate video just so you can come back to that one final important part.